Yeah. And what you tell him?
I tell him, yo, this is the third time you tell me you like my chain. What going on with you?
Mm.
And then he just look at me like, I just like it, man. I like, don't do that.
Wheel bend story and
Yeah, I pretty much just tell him, don't. When you telling somebody you like something more than once every time you see them, that's you telling them I'm about to take this from you soon. So,
mm.
and he like, no, no, I would never do that. I was like, yeah, you're right. You would never do that.
Sweet. Sweet that everything work out, and not sweet that he kept trying to coop your piece. So you know what I mean?
Whole time man could actually take everything that he got me, boy. Man's get tons of
Oh,
gun.
oh heavens.
Military bad that.
Oh, oh yeah, that's
Oh,
no problem. In
yeah,
fact, we live out now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Yow,
Yo, yo.
yow. I know they didn't see us coming tonight.
Yeah.
No, they didn't see us coming tonight.
But we
What?
here.
Yes, sir. Remember, guys, at highlight. And then we should be talking about. Wait, this is the number one
The
reason why
number
relationships
one
fail.
reason why relationships fail.
Hmm. Then this one ain't the one that I thought it was.
Mm, no worries.
Yeah, I thought this one was the one about the picking.
The choosing better.
Yeah,
Why that's a myth.
why you, yeah, why you shouldn't tell women to choose better.
Well, it wasn't specific to women, but
It wasn't,
we
or
get
it was.
in. It was not specific to
Mm,
women, but
mm,
we
mm.
imagine that they will be the focal point.
Oh
But
yeah.
no worries, because today is still just as important. Because I'm gonna be telling each and every one of you who've
Mm-hmm.
been in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
why all are full of shit. Quite frankly, no man, no man, no man, no man. Or am
I
I?
was like, I was like, I fit in that category. I fit in that demographic. Yow yow Dante, what am I saying? Bless up Dante. Bless up to the 7 people inside of the chat one time, one time. Today gonna be a nice special session with
Whoa.
our boy Kef Dog. With of course the Kidramos Prime, Nigencia James sliding in. Hopefully you ain't blending too much, you know what I'm saying? But keep doing your thing, you know what I mean? Keep doing your thing. And you don't know. So yeah,
Yes,
we
sir.
here. And we're
Yes,
about to
sir.
take this one away. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? With the number one reason why relationships fail. So,
Yes,
Kev,
sir. Yes, sir.
talk
Pleasant
through.
good evening, ladies, gentlemen, non-traditional conformants,
That,
everyone.
that traditional conformance.
Welcome, welcome back to MindHack Moments.
Mm-hmm,
It's your boy,
mm-hmm.
MindHack Sack, aka Kef Dog, Kef Breezy, Kef Meister. Anything that could go behind Kef is almost fair game.
Facts.
And joined by me is, of course, my road dog. Then
Mm-hmm.
starting with your handsome. And
Yaga yaga. Oh, and my guy Blues Clues. Man, it
my,
though. We can't. He can't make that that entrance.
yes,
Yeah,
sir. Yes, sir. And of course, we got on the Uno thing. The Unos. Oh shit. The Uno dos. I
yeah, that.
passed Spanish. I promise. I promise, guys. I passed Spanish. The ones and twos.
So sure about that.
KJ. Johnny Al.
Mm-hmm.
Government.
Mm-hmm. Full
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
Kejani
So,
Hall from Mommy Jew and Williams Delight. I just
yo. Hey. But I mean, you get morals, dog. Don't even worry about it.
whoa.
I mean, you
My
get
boy.
morals, bro.
My boy Kejani Hall from B Spot. My boy Kejani Hall from wait, what the next one is?
Strawberry.
Guys, I can't remember. No, not at all, not at all. Not at all. Not
All
at
right.
all.
Okay. So, welcome to yet another episode of Mind Hack Moments, where we endeavor to empower you, the people, with the tools to nurture your inner well being, forge self mastery, and build robust connections with others. And this episode is going to be a special emphasis on the building robust connections with others because we're talking about relationships, all right?
Yeah.
specifically why relationships fail today. And so I want to open up by asking the guys then, right, fellas, what I think really is the number one reason relationships fail today?
Woman.
Well, but communication.
Hey, boy, hit that.
Whoa, but
Okay.
I would say communication. Me, but I think just say woman. So that.
I would say expectations, um, or uncommunicated expectations or expectations. Period. So, yeah.
Okay. Can you guys tell me a little bit more about that? Like what
Well,
kind of
well, if you have an idea who the person's supposed to be, or they're supposed to fit into this wall or this image that you have put in front of them, um, then that could always throw things off, because then you may or may not have unrealistic standards based on the person that you're with, or even who you are, or what you think you have to offer, or your tolerance. So you can pretty much be building a fantasy when you should be in reality. A lot of the times, people, they'll kind of, you know, be their own deficit for the most part. So it all starts in the mind, as everything does. So, expectation.
got you. And KJ,
And
here to
with
expand on the
communication,
communication.
yeah. So it's really like you still got it, everything is a learning process. At the end of the day, like you have to take that time to learn your partner, your significant other, and at the end of the day, like to stuff the bother people. We have our own likes, we have our own needs. They ain't gonna know if we ain't let them know. You check.
Mm,
So sometimes we find ourselves in a state where we just get ourselves annoyed and aggravated. But at the end of the day, we could be like, probably ain't even address the situation to its fullest, so it don't happen again. So stuff like that, you know, just letting everything build up instead of being open. Like I said, understanding, saying what your likes and your dislikes is could
mm,
factor in terms of like making it
yeah.
work from making it break up, fall apart.
Okay. Cool beans. Now I know this is the part where I give my answer.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I'm about to give everybody the most cop out answer of all, in which I think all three of them things have some great merit to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Communication, unmet expectations, woman,
Woman.
man,
Woman, yeah.
everybody,
Really now?
everybody and everything. Yes.
Mm,
Right. And like I I really do find that the answer or the question itself is a interesting one because like when you go on any part of like social media and so like I even type this in different mediums they check and depending on what sphere of your timeline or wherever you there you can probably get different answers. So I have absolutely seen the reason why modern relationships fail is because women trying to become the man they want or women are becoming the man they want. I've
Mm,
seen another thing that say the reason why relationships fail is because niggas too sassy with it nowadays.
woman.
Jeez, bread, right? So like I've seen so many different answers,
Mm-hmm.
and as harmful as some of them can imply or just flat out be, I do think that all of them have some kind of ingredient that is willing to that we can all explore. And there's a very common denominator that I have found in all of them that serves as the real thing that I really want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the number one reason I believe relationships fail today, and really in general, is due to deficits or an absence in emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the conceptual glue that when you break down all of the different things you could generate or think of, you will find you will find where that they're relevant in every last one of them things.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence, right? And like I pull heavy emphasis on all time, not just today, right? Because a lot of people love to daydream about a time that they never participated in, where like back then, oh, relationships used to last and all of this different rah rah about how well relationships used to last, and don't really think too deeply about the circumstances around that. Like, you know, the number one thing I think about is that women have a lot more agency and autonomy in whether they have to stick around with this guy or not, because a lot of women were not in a great financial position or just great position in general to just pack up and leave. And so,
Mm-hmm.
with more agency and independence, there is more opportunity for you to just bust off, and it creates a new kind of like paradigm where I honestly think that with all of these advances that we have, whether technological or like social impact wise,
Mm-hmm.
our emotionality or like our emotional intelligence hasn't really been keeping pace with it. You check?
Mm-hmm.
And so emotional intelligence really is like the missing piece with what's stopping a lot of relationships from achieving romantic prosperity,
Mm-hmm.
as I would like to call it.
All thought.
Yeah, man.
Very valuable information, and I agree. So the chat start going off. It seemed
Yes,
like
sir.
your questions start making some buzzings. So Dante said, the clash of expectations and reality, and the difference of personality types and conflict resolution and compromise differences. Those are some of his examples as to why relationships fail. Taking things personally, defense mechanisms, different upbringing, and generational causes. Not being able to regulate emotions, which is what you was hinting on, or lightly. Um, in a healthy way, not expressing anger and disagreement in an unhealthy way, which are all in a nutshell, pretty much all have to do with emotional intelligence, which is what you're trying to um, shine a light on today. Then we have Kyle, our boy Kyle. Big up to Kyle Encarnacion. He say,
Yo, yo.
"So my boy say, woman, why your money? Yeah, your check." And then somebody hack our page.
All I
Everything
gotta say is
blessed.
wow
So
with a lot of W's.
somebody hack our old page.
Wow.
Everything blessed. I'm gonna say, I mean, with the women, do you blame them though? The masculinity in them have to be potent nowadays because some men really ain't it, which is, I guess, leaning more on the side of women having to step up to be more of the man, which is one of the indicators that you say why our relationships do fail. And then my boy Kyle come back in for a two-peat and say it's a trap. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a speedy update. One big up Zesha for being in the chat with us. You know what I'm saying? I
Yo,
think you like
yo.
a second time come up one big up Zesha, you know what I mean? Big fridge for being here with us, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yes,
But
sir.
um but yeah, now let's expand a little bit on your emotional intelligence rant that you're going on, and because I strongly do believe I strongly do believe that men that have emotional intelligence, women are not able to handle that emotional intelligence that men may display. Because if a man is in tune with his emotions and he knows he's being degraded, devalued, or unappreciated, misunderstood, taken for granted, on any and all of those things, normally you're sassy. Normally you're acting like a woman. Normally you're a little bitch. Normally over emotional. So help me to understand how you could even um how is it not one sided? like with emotional intelligence for a man, especially being that masculinity is almost like a like men have to be masculine. Things supposed to happen to you. You ain't even supposed to react. Women can say what they want. You can't say nothing.
So I actually do share your same sentiments with like uh the the thing that you open up with like a lot of men, especially ones who are more emotionally intelligent, can experience um that kind of backlash with
Hmm.
with that feedback. And I think like when you think about where we were in general to where a lot of folks are heading, much like what we're just talking about with like how women have been able to establish greater autonomy and independence. You have some of the side effect growing pains of like the appearance of more relationships not lasting as long,
Hmm.
right? I think that this is also a part of like that growing pain because historically, like everybody was kind of into these boxes of masculine and feminine. And when it came to guys, we were expected to maintain like this very strong, hard up appearance with all that also came at the expense of suppressing emotions.
Hmm.
And suppressing emotions is different from stoicism in the fact that it's not acknowledging the existence of these things at all. And so you don't really give yourself the chance to actually navigate and manage it, which means that should you fly off the handle, you can fly off the handle and you can get no way to get back on the steering wheel. And
That's
so what the insertion of like the emotionally intelligent man brings is you having somebody who was previously here where the standard was here, right? Like let's say like this, like let's just say for example, this is where the majority of women might be, right? Where because they have historically been allowed to engage with their emotions. We're here. And as you see, the emotionally intelligent person is kind of coming up to meet that standard.
hmm
Now, sometimes when that happens where somebody is like coming up, right? It is sometimes interpreted by the people that's like on standby as them going a little too high,
hmm
right? It's like the difference between perceiving somebody to have like an advantage or like privilege,
hmm
like going from a place of like being normal to like privilege versus somebody who is disadvantage gain access to normalcy, right? There's a lot of misinterpretations that come with that depending on what side of the fence you on. And so that's sort of make a guy articulating his boundaries or expressing his boundaries seen as sassy,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's absolutely a growing pain that I believe that once we continue staying that course and being honest with ourselves in that development,
hmm
it will it can and will balance out. But like it definitely is uh, a growing pain for sure. And you can observe that in all sorts of other ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do me a favor. Give me an
yeah.
example. Give me two examples. I want two of them. I want an example of um a man, like any situation, any scenario, the man that's emotionally intelligent in a relationship and a woman that may not, and the woman who have emotional intelligence in a relationship and a man that may not.
Um, well, I think an example that comes to mind is like if like a man expressing what bothering him,
Hmm.
right? Like especially especially if you communicate using like I statements, right? I actually made a video of this on my TikTok not too long ago with how
Yeah,
we're
I
talking
think I
about
saw
how to
that.
construct I statements. You check,
Hmm.
and basically I statements is you articulating specifically how this impacted how a particular behavior impacted you and
Hmm.
emphasizing the behavior itself. And
Yeah.
so you might have like a guy who might say like, it really bugs me when you like speak to me in this particular way with like it takes away from our ability to have like a productive conversation when you're yelling and not really listening to me when I'm trying to speak. And a emotionally unintelligent person, a woman in this case, might interpret that as, man, you being a little bitch, man. You check. And so that's 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 a pretty perfect example that I'm sure, unfortunately, lots of folks can relate. On the other side, with a emotionally intelligent woman and emotionally unintelligent man,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that example that could happen with anybody, right? But like you could have like that same you could have like the same situation with like dialogue and like this is a common thing actually that a lot of guys do. I actually gave it a name. I call it situational counter complaining. They check
That's crazy.
where yeah, yeah, where like uh where like a girl might talk or try to address particular issue that's like been happening,
Mm,
and the guy, instead of like engaging with that issue in
mm-hmm.
particular,
Mm-hmm.
they instead raise the issue with something else.
Good job.
Jeez, I'm bread Hansi. But
That's that
yeah, so
SCC.
like this is like a common playbook that a lot of guys like employ.
Yeah,
I've
that.
done it before.
Yep.
Obviously, you guys have seen Johan say he's done it before. I'm sure
Hell yeah.
KJ has probably done it before without him
Got
knowing,
even
right?
got even the playing field that when the
Yeah.
nagging
So
start, got even the playing field. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
So
But
this is
but
a hallmark of an
mhm.
absence of emotional intelligence, specifically in one of the dimensions that I'm going to be talking about as it pertains to self management or self regulation, which is the ability to manage one's emotions. This is a
Before you
very common. Well, oh, you want to go ahead?
no, you got finish.
Yeah.
'Cause I'll be
So so yeah, right? Like it's a very common tactic that a lot of guys do as a direct result of not being able to manage the feeling of impending accountability for something,
that's
right?
fucking
Where like it feels very uncomfortable to come to terms with the fact that you may have done something wrong. It deals a great blow to your pride or whatever, and instead of acknowledging it,
Mm-hmm.
you try to cope with it by evening the negative score.
And you say what that's your term that you come up with, or that's a term that been up?
yeah,
The
run off of back.
situational counter complaining,
Don't
SCC.
the
sound like
process
Good.
the
yes.
process in which
That's crazy. Yeah,
somebody
acronym.
responds to an initial complaint with a complaint that they're of their own, that they might have been either either is something that they tried to avoid or didn't really bother them, but they only raised it in attempts to counter the original complaint that was lodged.
The man, you take men only way to fight back verbally, and you turn it into a negative. And then KJ gonna give it an acronym. So now it gonna go inside of the dictionary books as something real that. When they say real that, this is just made up. This is our only way to fight back that. When we lose
Yeah,
and
man.
man to lose battles every day verbally that. So you can't just walk in and just you can't just walk in and just hit, you know what I'm saying? So verbally you gotta be like, well, these type of things been pissing me off for a couple of days. I ain't been saying nothing because ain't no boom. But this is what been happening. And then you got, fight back in that way. But I want you
Obviously,
to
it was
dive
a
into
boom,
that.
dog.
It,
Obviously, it was a boom, you check,
it
but
was,
that's not to the
it
point.
was, it was boom to hold on to though. It was boom to hold on to that for rough times. Rough times coming up. But check this out. So we get the chat a little hot. I'm gonna let you know from now. Chat a little
Yes,
hot.
sir.
Yeah, I want to big
Mm,
up Kenrick
mm,
Campbell for
mm.
being in the place to be. Kendra Kent
Kenny.
gonna stop by. Kendra says she's gonna stop by and visit your boy them. And we get Jamal, big producer. You know what I'm saying? Big time producer pass through and what's not. So yeah, before you jump into your full spiel and things, we still got a good one. I want to hear your take on quite a bit of a viral moment in VI Facebook about a post that went up about
Ooh, the right thing.
yeah,
Mm.
the young lady was walking with her kids. Um, you know, gentleman. I go same as a gentleman. Never saw him to be a bad person ever. Gentleman offer her a ride. She denied the ride, and he proceeded to laugh. Which that's fine, But she denied the ride, and when she denied the ride, she said, you know, I have a man, and that stir up tons of conflicting information and conflicting opinions based on this is what women have to do to stay safe, in which I understand, and also that some men are horrible people. They feel like if they give you a ride, then I mean you get to ride everything. So that's their way of keeping safe. How does that fit into the relationship aspect? Because I know there were some men who had takes on it in which they were saying, if you use my woman, yeah, you better keep walking. And then,
So
of
you,
course, there were some men, just on Facebook, random people, and there were some men who were saying like, ain't no boom, take the ride or what's now, what's now, what's now.
so you
How can
want
that how can that be detrimental to a relationship? And then
like
what areas of emotional intelligence in a relationship, like you were saying, are in play or not in play?
um well for the folks that are of the camp of like, oh, you better not be going in no man car, you better walk. And so that I think that definitely speaks to a few dimensions in emotional intelligence. For one, the way in which you articulate that, like you as in like the guys who are on that side, the way in which they articulate that, it does speak negatively to their level of like interpersonal communication,
Hmm.
just like the specific way in which they are able to convey their thoughts or feelings. And
Hmm.
so because like that's very restrictive in nature, right? And that
Hmm.
also speaks to a level of self-regulation or a lack thereof self-regulation, because your first instinct or fear of this person getting into a random guy's car is that they're going to cheat or do something that they ain't going to like do. That definitely speaks negatively to like someone's level of self-regulation. And of course you can absolutely make the argument that you want them to be like safe, or you want to establish certain boundaries. And so, but the reason why I said that it speaks negatively to their self-regulation is because of what I said earlier about how they communicated their stance on the passing gain in the car to begin with. Because if you responding, because I've seen some of the responses in question that you're talking about, if you responding to that there with such vitriol, that
Hmm.
does scream insecurity to me, check.
Hmm.
Versus you kind of saying like, hey, I ain't really comfortable with you getting in a car with a stranger. That's two
Hmm.
different things from, hey, my girl ain't riding in no car with no fucking man. But nothing, like these are two different things, you check.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah.
But don't you think it was a bit highly emotional, intelligent of the gentleman to see lady walking on the side of the street and offer her right, regardless of her denial, of course, was no um, remorse or not remorse, but there was no hostility in the denial in itself. But
Probably. I would think so. I would think that there is a level of empathy with
hmm.
that, which is again another dimension, right? Because he, from at face value, we could see, okay, he saw someone on the side of the road.
Hmm.
The sun is hot. They're
Hmm.
with two kids,
Hmm.
and so you can absolutely say, like, yeah, these are conditions that I would definitely understand to be pretty terrible.
Yep.
Let me extend some resources to this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, check. So like that definitely does like constitute empathy from that standpoint. The reason why I was like, I guess initially hesitant to, I guess, kind of say that first is because that post in and of itself have so many like nuances to it, right? Because that same kind of empathy that I just talked about that he possibly had is also taken right back from the mere fact that he posted and clowned the person for it, and
Gotcha.
is essentially enabling other people clowning the person for it. Like that's not an empathic gesture by any means. You check.
I feel you. So what about the young lady? What aspects of emotional intelligence did she play in her response, or did she not play any?
With the I have a man thing.
Yeah.
Hmm, that's a good question. I mean, from a base standpoint, uh, and this is assuming that she does not have a man and she just implored the response, then we can say that it speaks to a level of interpersonal communication where she did not opt to, like, I guess, say the purest, honest thing, which would have been, no thanks, I'm good, or whatnot. But again, this is assuming that she
Zesha
really
just said
don't
that
have a
too.
man, right?
Yeah, Zesha
What
said
you
that
say?
too. Zesha said that too. Instead of like she has to
Mm-hmm.
say all of that, she could have just said thanks for the offer, but no thanks. Like keep it straight like that.
It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, it definitely is. And again, this is all assuming that she don't have a man. But even if she didn't, like, yeah, you could still say like, oh well, that probably wasn't like the most straightforward response or whatnot to that. But like, there's again other factors and other nuances in that conversation aside from just purely talking about emotional intelligence that brings like explanations as to why that was the case. For
Mm-hmm.
example, safety. In no
Mm-hmm.
part of emotional intelligence is like,
Built into safety.
well, I mean it is, but like it's not one of like the five dimensions, right? Safety, and we just talking about safety and the fact that like, one, I don't know this guy. Two, we know of plenty of stories from both women and men that either either men just don't really take no or rejection for a straightforward answer. Like it's not as straightforward as, oh, okay, no problem. You have a great day. Is it always, or it tend to be some kind of like extended um like remark or conversation with it,
Mm-hmm.
just off of like the principles that we as men just kind of grow into, with like we trying to pursue or get what we want, and like trying to finagle our way into things. And like for women, that presents an issue of safety, and rightfully so, because you have a lot of situations where people, particularly women, get kidnapped, raped, killed, and even though the likelihood of that may not be as high as anybody might be like thinking, the fact that it's still possible, along with the fact that you just don't know what this person going to do,
Mm-hmm.
along with the fact that you know that a lot of men just don't take no or rejection for a straightforward answer, means that I am going to indiscriminately issue what I believe is the most surefire response to keep you chucking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I
So
mean? And
you hint on this five dimensions about three times so far in your
yeah,
explanation. You want to dive into what those five dimensions are, so we could be a little bit more versed in the knowledge.
yeah, yeah. And so emotional intelligence, like as a whole, basically speaks to the degree by which you are able to understand, process, and like articulate like your emotions essentially, and manage them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's separated. Like there's a lot of different models or theories that you can look at, but the one that I does really study is like those dimensions. And so those dimensions are self-awareness, which is of
Mm-hmm.
course your ability to recognize your emotions and understand your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy, your ability to recognize and understand other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation, your ability to um, manage like or navigate your desires.
Mm.
Self-regulation, which is your ability to manage your emotions. And interpersonal communication. It might have different names, but that basically speaks to your ability to like converse with others and navigate both your emotions and their emotions in that conversation.
Mm.
You check. So those are basically like the five dimensions in that. And
Okay.
even that they might have different names because empathy is absolutely somewhere in there for sure. So yeah. Oh wait, I
All right.
already did say empathy. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to do you that, but yeah, you might
Nah,
have.
do me that.
Facts. Next time, I get you for sure. You know, I always wait for a moment to knock you down there.
Jeez,
But
I bet.
but so how does that play a role in the detriment of relationships in these times, in modern times, that is, especially with social media? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so there one thing that I have also kind of noticed with people, at least here in our like Western culture, is that there's a big emphasis and big movement to, well, it's not like we've always kind of been on this way, but like there's like an increased occurrence of like individualism or
Mm-hmm.
self-centeredness. And self-centeredness, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this at all, right? Because I believe that everything starts with the self. That like it's impossible for me to extend something for you if I can't even like manage myself properly. Like I mean, like I guess I can, but it might not be delivered in the greatest way. And I think that there is a large increase of self-centeredness that is coming at the expense of everything around you, right? So like you'd see posts on like, you know, protecting my peace, or I ain't clearing up nothing about anything, any kind of issue with somebody. And at face value, these things are cool, right? Because we want to have a base sense of peace, and we also ain't obligated, I guess, to give anybody like an explanation or whatever,
Or regulate
but
somebody else's emotions.
or regulate somebody else's emotions. But the missing piece that a lot of folks are lacking is that base ability to resolve conflicts as they appear. A lot of us approach things in a very fixed mindset way with our self-centeredness as the base. So basically, when we approach in relationships and so a lot of it is a lot of the subconscious ideas is like, well, you coming into my space, you need to match my energy. Like listen to that for a second. Like you need to match my energy, right? And if you ain't matching what I bring in, then I just doing away with you. There's no conversation about how I gonna adjust to you. There's no conversation about, hey, we have an
No.
initial gravitation towards each other. Let's collaborate to nurture this thing together, which involves not only maximizing enjoyment, but recovering from conflict when it arises, even in the simplest ways.
Mm-hmm.
That missing piece is what really friggin' up our lottery. And the things that we need to facilitate that missing piece is the emotional intelligence. So like you mentioned the things with like expectations, right?
Yeah.
We have expectations. You can't stop having expectations, right? It's not something that we could just turn off.
Okay.
So the thing that we should be doing is not like just automatically or indiscriminately breaking off things when the expectations ain't met. We should
Mm-hmm.
be asking ourselves, how can we get back on our good track when those expectations ain't being met? Because nobody could be on go all
Mm-hmm.
day. Nobody
Yeah.
shows up at 100% all day. And like what KJ said at the beginning with the communication, you can't possibly know what a man ain't telling you. And so if you if somebody is failing to meet like your expectations, there are one of two things that you can do, or a combination of those two things that you can do to get back on track. That is, of course, communicating to them man so that they can meet your expectations, or adjusting your beliefs about what's happening so that you meet them man where they at, or again, some combination of both, which is what I encourage, because that is the aspect of collaboration. That ain't happening too much with our relationships. Somebody cross you, somebody do something um, that piss you off. If it's a small thing, we tend to avoid it and we let it build up in the background until it grows into this big thing that we end up popping off, and like we break off relationships or getting arguments and stuff, and we treat it as if it was this big event. No, it wasn't this big event. It was a process that you ignored because you ain't really nurture the tools that you needed to deal with it when it was smaller. And
Mm,
those tools are emotional intelligence.
no doubt. There's a very intriguing dialogue taking place inside of the chat in which I'm going to allow to continue to take place. And
Nice.
I love the conversation that they're having in the chat right now amongst one another. And I'm gonna use one of your words. I implore it that it continues between the the group inside the chat. But there was a question that was directed, I think, to the dialogue that you had about the expectations from Kenrick Campbell. He said, could those expectations be unrealistic or based on other imposed expectations?
They absolutely could be both, Kenny. It could be both. Sometimes somebody might very well expect something of a person that they are not able to deliver at that time, or they might not be able to deliver for a long time, or what have you. But that's
Mhm.
exactly where the dialogue, where the self awareness, and where the empathy especially comes in, so that you know your own reactions to this thing, so that you recognize it, so that you don't allow yourself to be emotionally hijacked. That's where the regulation comes in, so that you could facilitate that conversation with them on what's happening, how it's impacting you, and how you can both move forward in a positive way. All of those things that I just talked about with like that process encompass really all five of those dimensions somewhere along the line. You check. But again, the prevailing responses that a lot of people might have is something might have been missed. Oh, we avoid it. We don't pay it no mind. Oh, ain't no boom. We just leave it when the cup was at 1%. But if that happened 99 more times, all of a sudden your cup is full,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you explode. And
Yeah,
so we need those dimensions to recognize when a drop has occurred, so that we could know what we need to know to empty the cup before it gets full, as well as build the cup's capacity to deal with stuff in the future. That's how we to get to that prosperity.
great explanation. 15-minute mark, just to let you
Yes,
know.
sir.
Heads up on that. Kenny response was now what I think the big issue is people gravitating to the social media expectation in which I think we all can agree, like in unison. There's no qualms about
Yeah,
it. That's well understood across the board. So
yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Social media has impacted us so deeply, right? Because like it's a place where you can make highlights look like it's an everyday thing, and low lights non-existent.
I
Right?
want
It's
to.
also a place where you could just get you just have access to everybody's opinions all over the place, and it'll just regularly shape how you view and expect things. And again, that's where the self-awareness comes in,
Mhm.
to like check in with yourself on what it is that you've been believing, how it came to be, so that you can then regulate that. What do
Mhm.
I want to believe? How can I get there? How could I
Mhm.
make this happen?
I agree. So let me ask you this, because the 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 name of this episode in itself sparks some type of I don't want to say controversy, but it sparks a type of mm, let me just ask you the question. If a relationship fail, isn't that a good thing? So
What
put it this
What do
way.
you mean?
Tough question. I understand. Because even me, I'm,
Okay.
I'm fighting with the question myself mentally. Because if I have expectations and I have some sort of emotional intelligence and my partner is not there yet, like, okay, this is the problem that most women to go through. Not, not kind of like giving women an excuse to just write off men. Men do need time to, gradually increase their emotional intelligence because we normally think with logic. But the expectations being communicated, not met, all of those things. How long do you stay? Sometimes, if you're there for a long time, you're being treated second-handedly. Isn't a good thing that you call truce and step away from the relationship? Why? Why is that failure so much more of a negative thing when it's really a gray area that could be a benefit to you that you see like, hey, that this just wasn't going to work for us.
um, we
Off
the
topic.
answer, no, it's very much on topic, right? Because like, but like I was saying, or going to say that the answer to that question would change depending on where or what stage this is like occurring, right? So like, if you see a relationship that just failed, but it was riddled with domestic violence, obviously that, like, I can tell the person who was negatively impacted, congratulations,
Hmm.
right? Because like at that point there was no healthy reason for them to stick around, right?
I don't want you to go towards the extreme. I want you to stay
Well,
towards the more
I
neutral
am.
area.
I am.
Okay,
Stay with
because
me. Stay.
okay, cool, cool. I can stay with
Yeah,
you. I
stay with me.
apologize. Won't
Right.
interrupt you again. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like, even in like that extreme, right?
Hmm.
Extremes don't just start out as such. There is still something, whether it even started with the individual, right, that could have been serviced to prevent that kind of failure. Now, in that particular situation, the person who is perpetuating the violence, they definitely would need a healthy dose of, well, therapy to begin with, to help manage like the anger, self-regulation, be
Hmm.
aware of whatever specific triggers that get them to that place, self-awareness,
Hmm.
and of course creating more opportunities for them to begin thinking about how their actions impact others,
Hmm.
empathy,
Hmm.
right? And so like, in really any situation, in that type of stage, before any of the catastrophic outcomes could come, that is where the failure could convert into a success, if things like that are prevented from all the way back there, right? And again, even though like, as you mentioned, that's like an extreme outcome,
Yeah.
stuff stuff does expand in that way. So all in all, the failure would be like a good thing from the standpoint of looking at just the end product, or like where they ended. But we have to look at how it came to be there, right? Before all the chaotic arguments started, before we got into the habit of just yelling at each other, before we get into the habit of not resolving things in a timely manner, right?
Mhm.
Like that's where we want to be. We're like the stage of like preventing this as well as intervening as those things are happening. That's what a constitute the failure. The fact that you didn't have these tools to begin with. Because even after that person, any person exit that kind of relationship, right? Just because that relationship done or that situation done doesn't mean that it can't repeat itself. It actually might. Because even though you might be out of like the situation, the habits, patterns, and
Mm.
emotional dysregulation that you have cultivated will show itself again in some way in a next relationship or in your daily life, right? We're talking about relationships here, but this is something that pertains to your daily life, like in general. You know what I mean? We don't operate in buckets. You know what I mean? We don't have, oh, it's like, yeah, I'll have I'll have the emotional capacity here, and then
Mhm.
I'll have the emotional capacity like for my career. Like, no, we might
Yeah.
try to do it like that, but they're more like splits that we try to put in the bucket to try to separate the water as opposed to like different buckets altogether. Nope. Them
Mm.
splits can and will dissipate given the
The
right
good old,
circumstance.
the good old wet friend. The good old. Give me your hand. Let me walk you around the tree, all the way around the tree, and then let me bring you to the front of the tree to show you exactly why we stand in front of the tree. So mainly, it's because if your relationship fail, and this is me active listening, I summing it up for the the group chat because sometimes friend could really hit you with words and
Yeah.
terms that could fly over your head. Um, but the whole sum of it is that if your relationship fail, it's not a failure on the person like that you decided to leave with. It's also a failure on your part. You have to dig inside using those emotional intelligence tools and those 5 dimensions, and you have to figure out what parts did you play, what are you taking away from it, and how can you change those things moving forward in order to better yourself for the next relationship. You know what I'm saying? Which makes a lot of sense. So yes, in terms of that, then yeah, I guess if your relationship fail without it being domestic violence, you know what I mean? Because even if you're ridiculous and you're still getting punch up, you don't deserve to get punch up. You know what I'm saying? But without it being domestic violence, if it does, fail, it is a failure, and you have to take that one off the chin. That's accountability. Which springs into the next question from our dog, Kenny. If the relationship fails, should there be like an exit discussion or closure discussing lessons learned? Now, Kenny, I want to say before Kefren answer, you are a glutton for punishment, my guy. If the relationship is done, get your Georgie bundle, throw it on your shoulder, and head out. Don't allow that person to knock you down even more when you're already down. That's just my 2 cents. Take your time, sit, reflect on your own, write that shit down. It's in one of the episodes earlier on. Check out my hack. Write that shit down. Start better habits. That's the next episode earlier in what we discussed. And then start to move forward with some reflection. That's why I would say don't allow somebody to dictate who you should have or should have not been. You
Everyone
need
has
to
to
be able
say
to
yeah
handle.
and then boy stop at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Kefra like, you going good, Hansi. You go. Ah, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, nah, nah, nah. Don't. This is a bumpy ride. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's definitely that. So you could go ahead and answer that question. I'll reiterate the question. If the relationship fails, should there be like an exit discussion or closure discussing lessons learned?
Yeah, that definitely like depends on a lot, right? Like going back to the extreme example again of domestic violence, clearly there ain't no conversation that should be had, right? Like there's no conversation that can be had without this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like I think
Like that.
like
I
I
like
think
that.
it's never it's well it's almost never a bad idea because at the end of the day, even
Backtrack.
if like the no, at the end of the day, if if like you want to know something from like a 360 standpoint, in theory, there would be no better person to ask about this thing than the person that you just broke up with. But I would also say that just popped into my head that if you were able to have an exit conversation about why that they ain't like work out specifically, then it also should have meant that you could have had that conversation before our breakup.
So you
You know what
fail,
I
Kenny.
mean?
You fail, Kenny.
I
Nah, man.
really feel
But
like a
like,
case by case. So like it depends on how your relationship is. Like if you just both are just naturally still like the same working, but we cool. Like those conversations will be had in them situations. But like you say, if it's like a toxic, domestic, whatever, me really think they gonna work in them type of situations. That's like
Nah.
yeah,
Yeah. That was
yeah.
a
If the
perfect
thing break
explanation,
up,
friend. Perfect
yeah,
explanation.
if that heck ended on like shitty terms, that's definitely not something that you would want to ask them man now or even like months later, because I would imagine that you would still be like in like a funky place with them. So it definitely can be a tough thing to navigate. I would say like overall, if you feel confident in the idea that you would get good feedback from the person, then you know, so give it a shot. You know what I mean? But like yeah, like if you, I guess kind of like what you said, KJ, with like, you know, we still cool, but like we ain't good for each other. That kind of way. I guess you can still like ask, but yeah, I do think like if you had like the capacity to act that they had to exit, then it could have been something that you asked
before.
during the relationship. And the idea of that, like the idea of you asking things like that is definitely something I would encourage you to bring into your next relationship, preferably before the shit fails.
Kenny, me and you are friends. You are now my friend, Kenny. Kenny, you've been asking some very intelligent questions. You've been showing a lot of
Kenrick is the man dog.
intelligence. Ken, if you go back to that person, if somebody like you could fail in a relationship, the relationship wasn't going anywhere. Watching at the questions you're asking and watching at the way how you dialoguing with the people inside of the chat, Kenny, as your boy, Campbell, as your nigga, I gonna tell you for real, don't talk to her. If you really want some advice, if you really want like a, you could get a little 180, ask your best friend.
Next question.
But
Zay, shall I ask a
All
question?
right.
Because me and
Zisha asked a question. Let me go to Zisha. Zisha asked a question. She said, no, no, no. She asked a question about something earlier that I clarified. It was the pretty much the whole spiel of when like the relationship, yes, is a failure, as long as there's no detriment to your health and stuff like that, due to the fact that there's tools that you can employ within the relationship, such as talking, setting those expectations, communicating effectively, being self-aware. I mean, having empathy for the person, taking yourself, not being self-centered and having those discussions, i.e., like what Kefren was telling Kenny to do that. If you want to have those questions and have that closure conversation now, you could have had that before the relationship get to a boiling point rather than waiting until it's already at a boiling point and then now you're trying to fix something. That's like waiting until a whole pipe broke to try replace, everything for the most part.
yeah,
But um Kyle did ask a question, which is
What's the next
a
question then?
loaded question, and his question was, well, kind of running out of time, but we can go, Kefren.
yeah, we could go a little. Because
Okay.
it's an engaging thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It is. It is. Kyle asks, "What if it's a marriage?"
Like what if it's a marriage and like the exit conversation and all of that stuff?
Um, I'm assuming.
Well, if that's the case, I would definitely say there's a lot. There's, well, not a lot, but there is one more layer of circumstance that would definitely make that question more I guess, commonplace or acceptable, and that's the fact that like this is a change of legal status, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to go through an official divorce, and even if the relationship, like you checked out of the relationship, you're still married, and you still have to interact in some capacity if you wanted to get like the divorce and so um, I would definitely like say like yeah, that's also fine in asking that 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 kind of stuff, as well as even having a little extra bias on trying to recover it, right? Because you already signed them papers, you already in a position where you are literally like locked in, and so that could definitely be like an added incentive or an added layer for you to try to repair it, because you not only are you in that committed relationship in general, but you also have established the legal backing as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're leaving,
You know,
she gonna be like, up that thing, no?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Up your money and give me your dog. Not your chain. Give me your dog.
not
Or your
Fido.
money. Yeah, man. On the marriage thing, that is a deep, a very deep topic, and in today's times, I don't think people that take marriage as serious as they should. Um, Jesus Christ, Deshaun call me white. The first time in my life I ever get called white. I kind of appreciate it. But yeah, um,
Oh, because you're lighting.
yeah, the light for my next system. But it's a very deep situation. I think people are really in our times it almost seem like, oh, I could get married, divorce, marry, divorce, marry, divorce. There is not that traditional sticking through the situation in which is why sometimes it's good to have like marriage counseling and those type of things. Even when you think nothing is wrong, I think it's very important to have somebody sit down and kind of observe the way how you guys talk to one another, um, observe the way how you guys operate with one another. Um, I'll let a little piece of privacy go, only because it would be on my fault. It has nothing to reflect on my wife, but it did have a time Kefren had to like check me as like one of my partner and kind of like check me and like, yo, uh, the way you to be talking or your assumptions and your thoughts about some conversations with your wife are a bit detrimental to your relationship. I think that's something you want to rework in your mind. And it's important to have somebody there to observe your conversations. I think that's very important. Um, so that it can be a 360, a full 360, because now it's not one person observing the next or the next person observing the next. It's a third party observing the both of you guys. You know what I'm saying? And kind of giving you guys something to reflect on, giving you guys something to think about, and also charging you with different, whether it may be exercises or whether it may be think pieces to really start to build those tools. When you're talking about a marriage, bro, you're talking about if you want to be a man, you're talking about your business. Marriage is very much like your business. You need to take care of your business. You need to make sure you have good culture in your business. You need to make sure that your business is happy. The people that work for you are happy. Your employees are happy. Your customers are happy. Everything needs to be running smoothly. The minute you start to let your business crumble, you lose money, you get bankruptcy, all kind of things can happen. It's the same way. If you feel like you're so much of a man that you can't fit your mind around emotional intelligence, then you need to think about your life and your marriage and your relationships like businesses. Manage those businesses. You would not make your business partner feel uncomfortable because you know that's a detriment to your pocket. That's a detriment to your livelihood. It's the same thing with your spouse. It's the exact same thing with your spouse. The minute you start to allow that to become a detriment to your spouse, that is a liability for your pockets. That's a liability for your health, your peace, your sanity. That's a liability. That's something you have to manage. It's an asset, and not to make it like so tangible and make the person like unhuman like, but for individuals who find it hard to tap into that emotional aspect, if that's the case, if that works for you, then that's how you need to frame it, and you really need to take care of that person, because they are now an asset. They are a major asset to your life in every which way, in ways that you don't even understand and you can't see. But when they do leave, you will see it, you will feel it. Just like any business, when any business fail, you do see it, you will feel it. So take your marriage like a business. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now
That's weird how
everybody on
you
a
have that
Hansim,
that on and
everybody on
off
a
switch.
Hansim
Yeah.
bandwagon.
Yeah,
Everybody on a
that,
Hansim bandwagon now. Hansim
mm.
making sense. He ain't crazy no more.
Yes,
There you
sir.
go.
Oh, some heat. Oh, some lava, my friend.
Yeah, things only make sense when it makes sense to me, man.
What? No more.
Mm.
Say that again.
Bars, bars. Things only make sense when it makes sense to me. That bars.
All right.
Hey,
All right.
yes, sir.
All
So,
right.
here is your assignment for tonight, folks. I want you all to reflect because reflecting is my second most favorite thing to say on this pod. Second to write that shit down. All right. I want you to reflect on any relationship that you had that did not work out. It does not have to be romantic. It could have been a friend that you just cut off. I want you to think about the situation and I want you all to grade your dimensions of emotional intelligence that you utilize in that circumstance.
Say wait.
So
Say the five again. Say the five so they can remember.
yeah. So think about the the relationship that just ended.
Mm-hmm.
Where was your self awareness at?
Mm-hmm.
Where was your empathy at?
Mm-hmm.
Where was your self regulation at?
Mm-hmm.
Where was your social skills or interpersonal communication at? Or interpersonal skills, whichever one you want.
Mm-hmm.
And where was your motivation at?
I don't think this exercise. I don't think I qualified for it.
What
Yeah.
Deshaun done says zero, you know. He done says zero.
Wait. I think I do have a wait. Hear me out, Kefren. This ain't me being ignorant. This ain't Hansen. This you Hansen. I don't think I qualified for this because the last time I was in a relationship, other than the one that I'm in right now, was my my senior year of high school. That
That's cool. Remember, I said it ain't gotta be just romantic, It could be a friend, it could be somebody you just cut off, somebody you ain't dealing with no more. Like
So it don't have to be an ex. It
it,
could
it
be
don't it
somebody
don't
else.
have to be it don't have to be romantic, doc.
I mean, I figured out.
Yeah,
I figured out out. So like,
yeah.
okay, take it, but damn. All right, cool.
Okay, so he
Girl
failed.
zone,
Oh
girl
Lord.
Yeah,
zone,
yeah,
Right?
Kai.
girl
We get
zone.
homework. We get homework
Yeah,
time. I guess we get homework. Yeah, I mean
yeah.
it's a good.
Think
It's good.
about think about like that stuff. And when the live done, I actually have an article that talks about these different dimensions. So if you don't remember, I will post that article. But yes, think about any relationship that did not work out, whether it was romantic, platonic, or what have you, and really think about where each of your dimensions were in that situation. Like explore it. That's the part where you write that shit down and grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whichever. I really think about it.
Scale of one to 5, I fail. Scale of 1 to 10, I could probably make it. Give me more numbers, I could shake back. You know what I'm
Jeez, I'm bird. So, cool beans, but yeah, that's all. That's all I got for
saying? Yeah,
today,
man.
man.
Yeah,
All
man.
right.
So give thanks for coming through and swinging through. Hey, today was a great podcast. A lot of conversations inside the chat. I
Yeah,
want to big up. I want to big up Zaysha. Definitely big up Zesha. I always want to big up Nigerian. She always in the chat, giving engaging dialogue. You know what I'm saying? I definitely want to big up Kyle today for coming in like a force. Entering inside of the chat and really creating a lot of dialogue around some of the topics that we were talking about, which is great. And then of course, Deshaun, my guy Deshaun. Late but right on time. We always appreciate you. And Kenrick Campbell, keep coming through with them questions, man. Remember that you don't need closure, that you're a bad man. But yeah, what I'm saying. And that was a wrap for today. Number one reasons why relationships will fail. So if your relationship failed, please do some reflection, do your homework, reflect on some of your relationships that did fail. Use the 5 dimensions. Kev gonna post it. You're gonna be able to see it, track it. Be back with us again. You'll know when we pop back up. Should be sometime next week. Thank you guys for showing up.
Yes, sir. Oh, Deshaun just pop up with last minute comment. Oh, yes.
Mm,
I did show up on those guys podcast with episode 36. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure I check out them guys, man. Come through podcast.
coming
You
through
don't
back.
get Deshaun, you get Tafara, you get Brian, the voice of reason, you get Kenny. Kenny is also a part of that podcast, all right?
Mm,
So make sure I check them guys out. Come through the
yeah,
podcast.
come
All
through the
right.
podcast. Come through the
So you
podcast.
get 36 of them. Yeah, so 1 to
Mm,
36. I get a lot.
Yes, sir. You got a
mm,
lot to catch up to.
Plus the 6 that we get. So that's 42.
A
mm-hmm,
lot.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right.
So run them pesos and check it out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be easy, man.